Hey everyone, and welcome back. I'm Catherine, and you're listening to the Learn Fluent English podcast, where we break down real, natural English so you can speak fluently and confidently. Today, we're diving into a question that affects all of us. Is technology making us lazy? Think about it. We used to walk to the store, cook meals from scratch, even remember dozens of phone numbers. Now? We tap a few buttons, and groceries arrive at our door. We order food instead of cooking. We use navigation apps for places we've driven to 100 times. It's convenient, sure, but is it also making us less active, less engaged, less capable? It's a tricky question, because technology isn't bad. It has made life so much easier in so many ways. But are we over-relying on it? Are we trading convenience for basic human effort? That's what we're going to explore today. Let's get into it. Technology is supposed to help us, right? That's the whole point. It's meant to make life smoother, save us time, and reduce effort. And to be fair, it does. But the real question is, how much effort should we be saving? I mean, think about daily life just a couple of decades ago. If you wanted food, you had to go out and get it. If you needed directions, you actually had to read a map. If you had a question, you couldn't just Google it. You had to think, analyze, maybe even ask someone. Now, everything is instant. We barely have to move, barely have to think, barely have to remember anything. Our phones, our apps, our smart devices, they handle everything. But here's the catch. The less effort we put into things, the more passive we become. Wait, passive? Let's pause here for a second. When someone is passive, it means they don't take action or initiative. They just let things happen instead of making an effort themselves. For example, if someone never speaks up in meetings and just listens quietly, they're being passive. Another example, watching TV for hours without doing anything productive can make you feel passive and unmotivated. Or this, if you wait for opportunities to come to you instead of going after them, you're being passive in your career. Say it with me. Passive. Again, passive. And that's exactly what's happening. The more technology does for us, the more passive we become. Now, don't get me wrong. I love technology. It's incredible that we can talk to people across the world instantly, that we can work from home, that we have so much information at our fingertips. But at what cost? Because here's another thing. Our attention spans are shrinking. Our patience is getting shorter. We want everything instantly with zero effort. Think about social media. We scroll endlessly, consuming content in seconds before moving on to the next thing. And that's a problem because our brains are getting used to constant stimulation, but without any real engagement. Wait a minute. Engagement. Let's pause here. Engagement means being actively involved or interested in something. It's the opposite of just passively watching or listening. For instance, if a teacher makes a lesson exciting and interactive, students will show more engagement. Another example, when you deeply focus on a conversation instead of checking your phone, you're showing real engagement. Or this, social media companies want users to stay on their platforms longer, so they design their apps to increase engagement. Say it with me. Engagement. Again, engagement. But here's the irony. While technology is supposed to make us more connected, it's actually reducing our engagement with the real world. We sit at dinner, but we're on our phones. We meet friends, but half the time we're distracted by notifications. Even when we watch movies, we're checking messages, scrolling, half paying attention. And here's the question we should be asking. Are we really using technology, or is it using us? Now, let's talk about how technology has changed the way we move. Or, more accurately, how it has stopped us from moving. Think about it. We used to walk to places. Now, we order a ride. We used to go shopping. Now we click Add to Cart. We used to run errands, stand in lines, carry bags. Now, everything is delivered to our door, and we barely have to lift a finger. And sure, that's convenient, but here's the real question. Is it making us healthier? Is it making us stronger? Or is it just making us sluggish? Wait, sluggish. Let's pause here for a second. When someone is sluggish, it means they are slow, lacking energy, and not very active. It's that feeling when you've been sitting for hours and your body just feels heavy and unmotivated to move. For example, if you eat a huge meal and feel too lazy to do anything afterward, you're feeling sluggish. Another one, if you wake up after only 4 hours of sleep, you'll probably feel sluggish all day. Or this, staring at screens for too long can make your brain feel sluggish, like it's not fully awake. Say it with me. Sluggish. Again, sluggish. And that's exactly what happens when we rely too much on technology. The less we move, the more sluggish we feel. And let's be honest, our bodies were not designed for this kind of life. We were made to move, to lift things, to run, to stretch, to use our muscles. But technology has given us a way to avoid all of that. Now, instead of going to the gym, we watch fitness influencers on TikTok while sitting on the couch. Instead of walking around a mall, we shop online while lying in bed. Instead of playing outside, kids play video games for hours. And then we wonder why we feel tired all the time, even though we're not even doing anything. The truth is, we're using technology in a way that's working against us. Instead of helping us do things better, it's often just helping us do things less. And the worst part? We don't even realize it's happening. See, the problem isn't just that we're moving less, it's also that we're thinking less. Because let's be real, how often do we actually sit and think these days? I mean, really think. We don't have to remember things. Our phones store everything. We don't have to problem solve. Google gives us instant answers. We don't even have to be bored, because the moment we have a free second, we grab our phone and start scrolling. And here's where things get interesting. Do you know that boredom, actual, genuine boredom, is one of the biggest drivers of creativity? Wait a minute. Creativity. Let's pause here. Creativity is the ability to come up with new ideas, solutions, or ways of doing things. It's what happens when you use your imagination or think outside the box. For example, when an artist paints something completely original, they're showing creativity. Another one, when a chef experiments with flavors and creates a brand new dish, that's creativity. Or this, when a company finds a fresh, unique way to market a product, they're using creativity. Say it with me. Creativity. Again, creativity. Now, here's the problem. The more we fill every free moment with screens and distractions, the less time we give our brains to actually think, to wander, to come up with new ideas. Because creativity isn't something you can just force. It comes when your mind has space to breathe. But when we're constantly consuming content, endless videos, endless posts, endless notifications, our brain never gets that quiet time to be creative. And that's why so many people today feel stuck. Stuck in routines, stuck in unfulfilling jobs, stuck feeling like they never come up with anything new. Because we've replaced thinking with scrolling. And that's the real danger of technology. It's not just making us lazy with our bodies. It's making us lazy with our minds. All right, let's keep going. And here's the thing. Technology is sneaky. It doesn't just take over all at once. It creeps in little by little until one day we look around and realize we've stopped doing things for ourselves. We don't even notice how much we rely on it. At first, it's just small things. Instead of walking to the store, we order online. Instead of writing things down, we set reminders. Instead of calling a friend, we text. And before we know it, we've built a life where we barely have to put in any effort at all. Wait, effort. Let's pause here for a second. Effort means the energy, time, or hard work you put into something to achieve a result. It's when you push yourself to do something, even when it's difficult. For example, if you want to get fit, you have to put in the effort to exercise regularly. Another one, if you want to learn a new language, it takes a lot of effort to practice every day. Or this, he didn't pass the exam because he didn't put much effort into studying. Say it with me, effort. Again, effort. And the problem is, when technology makes everything too easy, it removes the need for effort. And sure, at first that sounds great, right? Less work, less stress, but in reality, it's making us weaker, both physically and mentally. Think about it. When we stop challenging ourselves, when we stop struggling even a little, we stop growing. Because here's a little secret. Effort is what makes life meaningful. It's what makes us feel accomplished. It's what gives us confidence. It's what helps us improve. But if everything is handed to us on a silver platter, if we never have to try, we lose that feeling of progress. We lose the satisfaction of overcoming something difficult. And that's dangerous. Because the moment life throws something truly challenging at us, something we can't just Google our way out of, we won't know how to handle it. And that's why more and more people today feel lost, unmotivated, and even depressed. Because life without effort feels empty. So what do? Do we throw away all our devices and go live in the woods? Of course not. Technology isn't the enemy. It's how we use it that makes the difference. If we let it do everything for us, if we let it replace effort and challenge, then yes, it will make us lazy. Physically, mentally, and emotionally. But if we use it wisely, if we use it to enhance our lives instead of replacing real effort, then it can be an incredible tool. The key is balance. Wait. Balance. Let's pause here. Balance means having the right amount of something, not too much and not too little. It's about keeping things in proportion so that one thing doesn't take over your life. For example, if you only work and never relax, you don't have a good balance between work and rest. Another example, eating junk food once in a while is fine, but eating it every day is not a healthy balance. Or this, she balances her studies and social life well, so she doesn't get too stressed. Say it with me, balance. Again, balance. That's exactly what we need with technology. We don't need to quit using it, but we do need to be aware of how it affects us. We need to ask ourselves, am I using this to help me? Or is it making me dependent? Am I letting it replace real effort? Am I in control of it, or is it in control of me? Because at the end of the day, technology should be a tool, not a crutch. So where do we draw the line? How do we stop technology from turning us into passive, unmotivated versions of ourselves? The answer is simple: intentionality. We have to be intentional with how we use it. Wait, let's pause here. Intentional means doing something on purpose, with a clear goal or reason behind it. It's the opposite of just going with the flow or acting without thinking. For instance, if you wake up early every day to exercise, you're being intentional about your health. Here's another one. She doesn't scroll through social media mindlessly. She's intentional about using it to learn new things. Or this, he's very intentional with his words. He thinks carefully before speaking. Say it with me. Intentional. Again, intentional. That's exactly what we need to be with technology. Instead of just using it mindlessly, we should be asking ourselves, is this helping me grow? Is this adding value to my life? Am I still in control? Or is it controlling me? Because if we don't ask these questions, technology will slowly start making our decisions for us. Think about it. Have you ever picked up your phone just to check the time? And before you knew it, 30 minutes had passed because you got lost in scrolling. That's what happens when we're not intentional. And when we lose control over how we spend our time, we lose control over our lives. So, instead of letting technology dictate what we do, we have to use it in a way that benefits us. For example, instead of binge watching shows every night, we can use that time to read, learn something new, or even just go for a walk. Instead of relying on navigation apps for every little trip, we can challenge ourselves to memorize routes. Instead of ordering food all the time, we can cook more meals at home. It's about making small choices that add up over time. Because here's the truth, technology itself isn't making us lazy. We are making ourselves lazy by the way we use it. And once we realize that, we can take back control. So, let's challenge ourselves to be more aware, to use technology wisely, and most importantly, to keep putting in the effort where it truly matters. Because the more effort we put into life, the more rewarding it becomes. And that's something no app, no device, and no shortcut can ever replace. Now, let's be real. Changing our habits isn't easy. Technology is designed to be irresistible. Wait a second, irresistible. Let's break that down. If something is irresistible, it means it's so tempting or attractive that you just can't say no to it. For example, that chocolate cake looks irresistible. I have to take a bite. Or this. Her energy and enthusiasm are irresistible. You can't help but feel excited around her. One more. He found the offer irresistible and accepted the job right away. Say it with me. Irresistible. Again, irresistible. And that's exactly how apps, games, and social media are designed. They grab our attention and don't let go. Ever notice how you pick up your phone just to check a message, and suddenly you're lost in a rabbit hole of videos, memes, and random posts? That's not an accident. Tech companies know how to keep us hooked. Bright colors, endless scrolling, instant rewards. It all makes technology irresistible. But here's the thing. Just because something is tempting doesn't mean we have to give in. We can train ourselves to resist. One simple way? Set boundaries. For example, no phone in the bedroom. That way, you're not scrolling in bed for hours. Or how about deleting apps that waste too much time? No TikTok? No problem. Even small changes, like setting a timer before you start watching videos, can make a huge difference. Because here's the truth. Technology isn't going to change for us. We have to change how we use it. It's not about quitting completely. It's about using it in a way that helps us instead of making us lazy. So let's take back control. Instead of letting our devices dictate our lives, let's be intentional. Remember that word? About how we use them. Because when we do, we don't just fight laziness. We build better, stronger habits. And in the long run, that makes all the difference. But let's be honest. Breaking free from the grip of technology isn't as simple as just saying, I'll use my phone less. It's a gradual process. Wait a second, gradual. Let's break that down. If something is gradual, it happens slowly over time, not all at once. For instance, learning a language is a gradual process. It takes time and practice. Or this, his recovery after surgery was gradual. He didn't get better overnight. Another example, over the years, there has been a gradual shift in how people consume news, moving from newspapers to social media. One more, making small gradual changes in your routine can lead to big improvements over time. All right, back to what I was saying. Cutting back on tech has to be a gradual shift. If you try to go cold turkey, meaning quit all at once, you'll probably end up frustrated and right back to square one. That's why small changes work best. For example, start by setting a rule. No phones during meals. It sounds easy, but you'll be surprised how often you reach for your phone without thinking. Another trick? Turn off notifications. When your phone isn't constantly buzzing, you won't feel the urge to check it every few seconds. And one more, replace screen time with something else. Instead of scrolling through social media before bed, read a few pages of a book. These small shifts add up. And before you know it, you'll realize you don't actually need to check your phone every 5 minutes. But here's where it gets tricky. Even when we try to reduce screen time, there's another big issue: convenience. Oh, let's pause for a second. Convenience. If something is convenient, it's easy to use or do, making life simpler. For instance, online shopping is super convenient. You can buy anything without leaving your house. Or this: ordering food from an app is so convenient, I barely cook anymore. Another one: having a car is convenient, but walking is better for your health. One more: she chose the most convenient flight, even though it was a bit more expensive. Now back to the topic. Technology has made everything incredibly convenient. Think about it. Before, if you wanted to buy something, you had to go to a store. Now, just a few taps on your phone and it's delivered to your door. Before, if you wanted food, you had to cook. Now, order online and it arrives in minutes. Even entertainment, before you had to go to a movie theater. Now, you can binge watch entire shows without leaving your couch. And that's the problem. The easier things become, the less effort we put in. And the less effort we put in, the lazier we become. That's why so many people struggle to stay active. It's just easier to do nothing. Why walk when you can drive? Why cook when you can order? Why read when you can watch a summary on YouTube? The cycle is endless. And that's exactly why we need to be aware of it. Because the more aware we are, the more control we have. Now, I'm not saying we should go back to the Stone Age and start living without tech. That's unrealistic. But what we can do is be mindful. Instead of always choosing the easiest option, ask yourself, is there a better way? Can I walk instead of taking the elevator? Can I cook something simple instead of ordering junk food? Can I take a break from screens and do something that actually benefits me? Because at the end of the day, the problem isn't technology itself. It's how we use it. And if we're not careful, the convenience that makes life easier can also make us weaker, less active, and ultimately, lazier. And look, I get it. Modern life is fast-paced. We're all juggling 100 things at once, and technology helps us manage it all. But sometimes, the very thing that's supposed to help us ends up backfiring. Oh, let's pause there. Backfiring. If something backfires, it produces the opposite result of what was intended. For example, I tried to wake up earlier by setting 5 alarms, but it backfired. I ended up even more exhausted. Or this: his plan to impress his boss backfired when he accidentally sent the wrong email. Another example: cutting corners on a project can backfire, leading to more problems later. One more: she thought lying would help her avoid trouble, but it backfired and now no one trusts her. All right, back to what I was saying. Technology is supposed to make life easier, but when we rely on it too much, it backfires. Take navigation apps. Super helpful, right? But the more we use them, the worse our sense of direction gets. Or autocorrect. It saves us time, but have you ever noticed that the more you rely on it, the worse your spelling becomes? And then there's AI, which is incredible for automating tasks. But the more we depend on it, the lazier our thinking gets. We stop solving problems ourselves because we know the answer is just one Google search away. That's the tricky thing about convenience. It's great in moderation, but when we let it take over, it starts to backfire. And speaking of that, let's talk about how technology has changed the way we relax. There used to be a time when unwinding meant going for a walk, meeting friends, or reading a book. Now, it means staring at a screen. We scroll endlessly, switching from one app to another, thinking we're relaxing. But are we? Or are we just zoning out? Wait a second. Zoning out. Let's break that down. If you zone out, you stop paying attention to what's happening around you, often because you're lost in thought or staring at a screen. For example, I completely zoned out during the meeting and missed half of what was said. Or this: he was staring at his phone, totally zoned out, while I was talking to him. Another example, when I drive long distances, I sometimes zone out and don't even remember parts of the trip. One more, she zoned out in class because she was daydreaming about the weekend. Now back to my point. Technology has turned us into experts at zoning out. We scroll, we watch, we consume, but are we actually doing anything? That's why so many people feel tired all the time, even when they're not physically active. Their minds are exhausted from endless digital stimulation, but they're not truly resting. So what's the solution? It's simple. Real rest. Instead of zoning out, we need to engage in activities that actually recharge us. Like what? Taking a walk without looking at your phone. Reading an actual book, not an article filled with clickbait. Having a conversation where you actually listen, instead of just waiting for your turn to speak. And here's a big one. Boredom. People underestimate the power of boredom. When you let yourself be bored, you give your brain space to think, to process, to be creative, but we don't allow that anymore. The second we feel even a tiny bit of boredom, we grab our phones. And that's a problem. Because some of the best ideas, the deepest thoughts, and the most meaningful moments happen when we're not distracted. When we're just there in the moment. So, the next time you feel the urge to grab your phone for no reason, pause. Ask yourself, do I really need to check my phone? Or am I just avoiding boredom? Because if you can get comfortable with boredom, you'll gain something most people don't have anymore. Mental clarity. And in a world filled with noise, that's one of the most valuable things you can have. And look, I get it. Technology is deeply embedded in our lives. It's not like we can just toss our phones in the trash and go live in the woods. That's not realistic, but we can be more aware of how we're using it. Because the real issue isn't technology itself, it's how we let it dictate our lives. Oh, let's pause there for a second. Dictate. If something dictates your life, it controls or strongly influences what you do. For example, his work schedule dictates how much time he can spend with his family. Or this, don't let fear dictate your decisions. Take control of your choices. Another example, social media algorithms dictate what content we see, shaping our opinions without us even realizing it. One more, your daily habits dictate your long-term success, so choose them wisely. All right, back to my point, technology is useful, but we have to make sure it doesn't dictate our routines. Like, think about how most people start their day. What's the first thing they do? They grab their phone. Before even getting out of bed, they check their notifications, scroll through messages, open social media. It's like we don't even give ourselves a moment to just exist before bombarding our brains with information. And then, the rest of the day follows that pattern. We work on our computers, reply to emails, switch between tabs, check our phones every few minutes. By the end of the day, our brains feel fried, but have we actually done anything meaningful? That's the tricky part. Technology feels productive, we feel busy, but are we truly making progress, or are we just spinning our wheels? Oh, let's hold on. Spinning your wheels. This is a really useful phrase. If you're spinning your wheels, it means you're putting in effort but not making any real progress. For example, I spent hours trying to fix my laptop, but I was just spinning my wheels. I should have called a technician. Or this, he's been studying for weeks without a clear plan, just spinning his wheels instead of actually learning. Another example, arguing with someone who refuses to listen is like spinning your wheels. It won't get you anywhere. One more, she kept jumping between different workout programs but never stuck to one, so she was just spinning her wheels. All right, back to what I was saying. Technology has created this illusion of productivity. We check emails, reply to messages, scroll through endless content, but does any of it actually move us forward? Or are we just spinning our wheels, feeling busy without real progress? And it's not just about work. Even in our free time, we do the same thing. Instead of actually resting, we watch TV while scrolling on our phones. Instead of actually relaxing, we multitask, jumping between different apps and notifications. And then we wonder why we feel so drained all the time. It's because we never truly switch off. We're always plugged in, always consuming, always reacting. And that's exhausting. So, what's the fix? It's not about quitting technology. It's about controlling it. It's about setting boundaries. Like, have you ever tried leaving your phone in another room while working? Or setting a rule that you won't check social media before noon? Or, this one's big, having screen-free time before bed? It sounds small, but these things make a huge difference because every time you take back control, you remind yourself that you run your life, not your phone. And trust me, once you start making small changes, you'll feel the difference. You'll have more focus, more clarity, more energy, and most importantly, you'll stop feeling like technology is dictating your every move. And you know what's funny? When people hear set boundaries with technology, they immediately think it means getting rid of it altogether. Like some extreme solution where they throw their phone in a drawer and go live off the grid. But that's not what I'm saying at all. Technology is a tool, and like any tool, its impact depends on how we use it. Take social media, for example. It can be an incredible way to connect with people, learn new things, and even build a career. But it can also be a time sink if we're not careful. Oh, let's take a second there. Time sink. A time sink is something that eats up a lot of time without giving much value in return. For example, mindlessly scrolling through social media is a major time sink. Before you know it, an hour has disappeared. Or this, he thought playing video games would be a fun break, but it turned into a complete time sink, and he got nothing done. Another example, answering unnecessary emails all day can become a time sink that prevents real work from happening. And one more, watching short videos can be entertaining, but if you're not careful, they turn into a time sink that eats up your whole evening. All right, back to my point. Technology isn't the problem. The problem is how we let it control us instead of the other way around. And one of the biggest culprits? Notifications. I mean, think about it. How often do you check your phone just because a notification pops up? Even if it's something tiny, an email, a random app update, a message that could easily wait, you feel this pull to check it. And then what happens? You check that one thing, and suddenly you're scrolling through something else. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe more. You didn't mean to waste time. It just happened. And that's exactly what these platforms are designed to do. They're built to hijack our attention. Oh, wait, hijack. Let's pause there for a second. To hijack something means to take control of it forcefully or in a way that wasn't intended. For example, social media apps hijack our attention by constantly sending us notifications and suggestions. Or this, fear and doubt can hijack your thoughts, stopping you from taking action. Another example, the meeting was supposed to be about productivity, but one person hijacked the discussion and turned it into a complaint session. And one more. Whenever she tries to focus, random distractions hijack her mind, making it hard to get anything done. All right, so back to what I was saying. Technology is designed to hijack our focus, and notifications are one of the biggest ways it does that. But here's the thing. Just because something is designed to distract us doesn't mean we have to let it. We can take back control. And sometimes, the simplest solution is the most effective. Turn off notifications. Yep, just turn them off. Not all of them, obviously. But the ones that don't actually add value to your day. Like, do you really need a notification every time someone likes your post? Or when some random app updates, or when an email comes in that you're not even going to answer right away? Nope. So why let them keep hijacking your focus? Because here's the thing. Every time we get distracted, it takes time to refocus. And over the course of a day, that adds up. which means the more we control our tech, the more time and mental energy we get back. And honestly, once you start making these changes, you'll notice something interesting. You'll feel lighter, calmer, more in control. Because instead of being constantly pulled in 100 different directions, you're choosing where your attention goes. And that's a huge shift. Because in a world designed to distract us, focus is a superpower. And speaking of focus, let's talk about another sneaky way technology keeps us hooked: the infinite scroll. Have you ever noticed how on social media, there's no natural stopping point? You don't just scroll to the end of a page and move on. Nope. New content keeps loading and loading and loading. And before you know it, 20, 30 minutes have disappeared. That's because these platforms are designed to keep us scrolling indefinitely. They use variable rewards. Basically, our brains get little hits of dopamine when we see something new or interesting, and that keeps us coming back for more. Oh, wait a second. Variable rewards. Let's pause there. A variable reward is when you get a reward, but you never know exactly when or how big it will be. This keeps your brain engaged and wanting more. For example, social media uses variable rewards. You keep scrolling because you never know when you'll see something exciting. Or this, slot machines in casinos are based on variable rewards, which is why people keep playing hoping for a big win. Another example, email can be addictive because of variable rewards. You never know when an important or exciting message will pop up. And one more, shopping apps use variable rewards by offering random discounts or surprise deals to keep customers checking back. All right. Back to infinite scrolling, these platforms have mastered the art of variable rewards. And that's why it's so hard to stop once you start. Because you're always thinking, maybe the next post will be interesting, maybe the next video will be even better. And before you know it, you've lost an hour or more. So what can we do about it? Well, one of the best tricks is to create artificial stopping points. Like, instead of scrolling endlessly, decide ahead of time. I'll only watch 3 videos or I'll stop after 10 minutes. You can even use built-in tools, like screen time limits, to remind yourself when it's time to stop. Because if we don't set our own limits, these apps sure won't do it for us. And that's exactly why so many people struggle with productivity these days. It's not that they're lazy, it's that they're overstimulated. Oh, let's take a second. Overstimulated. To be overstimulated means your brain is receiving too much input, making it hard to focus or relax. For example, after scrolling through social media for hours, she felt overstimulated and couldn't concentrate on reading. Or this, loud noises, bright lights, and constant notifications can make people feel overstimulated and exhausted. Another example, kids today are often overstimulated because they're surrounded by screens and instant entertainment. And one more, after a long day of back-to-back meetings, he was so overstimulated that he needed some quiet time to recharge. All right, back to my point. Being overstimulated makes it really hard to focus on meaningful tasks. And when we struggle to focus, what do? We avoid the hard stuff. We check our phones. We scroll. We do anything except the thing we actually need to do. And that's why technology can make us feel lazy, even when we're not, because our brains are constantly processing so much information that when it comes time to actually do something, we're exhausted, mentally drained, and that's when procrastination kicks in. Because instead of writing that report or finishing that project, our brain is looking for something easier, something that feels productive, but really isn't. Like organizing files instead of working, or watching educational videos instead of studying, or checking emails again instead of actually replying to the important ones. And the worst part? All of this just makes us more stressed, because deep down, we know we're avoiding what really matters. So what's the solution? Well, one of the biggest game changers is learning how to manage mental clutter. Wait a second. Mental clutter. Let's break that down. Mental clutter is all the unnecessary thoughts, distractions, and information that make it hard to think clearly and stay focused. For example, having too many things on your to-do list can create mental clutter, making it hard to know where to start. Or this. Constant notifications and social media updates add to mental clutter, making it difficult to concentrate. Another example, when your mind is full of worries and overthinking, that's a sign of mental clutter. And one more, decluttering your workspace can actually reduce mental clutter and help you focus better. All right, back to the point. One way to fight mental clutter is by setting clear priorities. Deciding ahead of time what's actually important today. And then making sure those things get done first. Because if we don't take control of our attention, someone else will. Whether it's social media, emails, or just random distractions, something will always try to steal our focus. But when we learn to manage mental clutter, we can stop feeling so drained and start actually making progress on what matters. And speaking of managing our focus, another major way technology affects us is by shortening our attention span. Think about it. When was the last time you read an article without getting distracted, or watched a video without checking your phone, or even had a conversation without feeling the urge to glance at your notifications? See, the way most apps and websites are designed, they actually train our brains to expect constant stimulation. Every few seconds, something new pops up, a notification, a message, a trending video, an address, a breaking news alert, and all of this makes it really hard to focus on anything for more than a few minutes. That's why so many people struggle to sit down and read a book these days. Not because they don't want to, but because their brain has gotten used to fast, bite-sized content. So when they try to focus on something longer and more complex, it feels exhausting, almost impossible. And that's why, in so many cases, people mistake this for laziness. When in reality, it's just a brain that's been trained for constant stimulation. And it's not just individuals. This is happening on a massive scale. Students, workers, professionals, so many people are struggling to stay focused for long periods, which, of course, makes getting things done so much harder. And that's where deep work comes in. Wait a second. Deep work. Let's pause here for a moment. Deep work refers to focused, distraction-free work that allows you to achieve high levels of productivity and creativity. For example, writing an essay without checking your phone is an example of deep work. It requires full concentration. Or this, developers, artists, and writers rely on deep work to produce high-quality results without distractions. Another example, turning off notifications and working for an hour straight is a great way to practice deep work. And one more, deep work is the opposite of multitasking. Instead of switching between tasks, you focus on one thing at a time. All right, back to what I was saying. Since technology keeps pulling us toward quick distractions, we have to train ourselves to do deep work again. One of the best ways to do this is something called the Pomodoro technique. Ever heard of it? Basically, you work in focused blocks of time. Let's say 25 minutes, then take a 5-minute break. And after repeating this a few times, you take a longer break. This helps reset your brain so you don't feel completely drained while still making sure you're actually getting things done. It's a simple habit, but it works wonders. Because the truth is, our brains can focus deeply. They just need to relearn how to do it. And speaking of habits, let's talk about another huge reason why technology makes us feel lazy: dopamine addiction. Oh, let's break that down. Dopamine addiction. Dopamine is a brain chemical that makes us feel pleasure and motivation. But when we get too much of it from easy, instant rewards, we lose motivation for harder, long-term goals. For example, social media gives constant dopamine hits, which can make real-life activities feel less exciting. Or this. Video games can cause dopamine addiction by making the brain crave instant rewards instead of real-life achievements. Another example, binge-watching TV can flood the brain with dopamine, making it harder to enjoy slower-paced activities. And one more, cutting back on phone use can help reset dopamine levels, making regular life feel more rewarding again. All right, back to my point. When we spend all day getting quick dopamine hits, through scrolling, gaming, or binge watching, our brains start to expect instant pleasure. And the problem is, most important things in life don't give instant rewards. Learning a skill, building a career, exercising, improving our health. All of these things take time and effort. So when our brains are used to fast dopamine, anything that takes longer feels boring or too hard. And this is exactly why so many people struggle with motivation. Not because they're actually lazy, but because their brain has been trained to only want easy, instant rewards. Which means, if we want to stay motivated, we have to break this cycle. And one of the best ways to do that is by introducing dopamine detox. Now, wait a second. Dopamine detox? Let's break this one down. A dopamine detox means taking a break from artificial dopamine sources, like social media, junk food, or video games, to reset the brain's natural motivation. For example, if you stop using social media for a day, you're doing a dopamine detox. This helps reset your brain's reward system. Or this. Spending a weekend without digital entertainment can be a powerful dopamine detox, making real-life activities feel enjoyable again. Another example, quitting sugar for a week can act as a dopamine detox, helping you appreciate healthier foods. And one more, if you feel unmotivated, a dopamine detox can help bring back excitement for real-world activities. All right, back to my point. By doing a dopamine detox even for a few hours or a day, we can start to enjoy simple things again. A walk outside, reading a book, having a conversation without distractions. And once we reset our brains, we naturally become more productive because our motivation isn't being hijacked by cheap artificial rewards anymore. And when that happens, that feeling of laziness disappears because it was never about being lazy in the first place. It was always about how technology trains our brains. But the good news is, if technology trained us to lose focus and motivation, we can train ourselves to get it back. Now, here's another big reason why technology makes us feel lazy. Automation and convenience. Think about how many things we don't have to do anymore because technology does them for us. We don't need to remember phone numbers. Our phones do that. We don't need to cook. We can order food with a few taps. We don't need to walk to the store. We can have groceries delivered. We don't even need to think about directions. No, our GPS handles that. And don't get me wrong, these advancements are amazing. They save us time. They make life easier. They help us focus on bigger things. But here's the problem. When everything becomes too easy, we start to lose the ability to do things for ourselves. And that creates a sense of helplessness. Let's say you rely on a GPS all the time. Then, one day, your phone dies and you have no idea how to get home. Or let's say you always order food. Then, when you need to cook something, you realize you don't even know how to boil an egg. Or maybe you use autocorrect so much that when you have to write something without it, you suddenly feel lost. See, when we stop practicing certain skills, we lose them. And that can make us feel incapable. And when we feel incapable, we avoid challenges. And when we avoid challenges, we mistake that for laziness. But it's not laziness. It's just a lack of practice. Now, let's pause here. Lack of practice. Let's break that down. A lack of practice means that when we stop using a skill, we slowly forget how to do it, making us feel unmotivated or helpless. For example, if you stop reading books for a long time, you might struggle to focus on long texts. That's lack of practice. Or this. Someone who never exercises might find a simple workout exhausting because of lack of practice. Another example. If you don't practice writing by hand, your handwriting might get worse over time due to lack of practice. And one more. If you never cook and always eat out, cooking might feel overwhelming because of lack of practice. All right, back to my point. When technology makes things too easy, it removes opportunities for practice. And when we don't practice something, it feels harder than it actually is. Which is why, even when we want to do something like cook, write, or remember things without using our phones, it suddenly feels like a huge challenge. And this is where the idea of intentional effort comes in. Wait, intentional effort. Let's break this down. Intentional effort means making a conscious choice to do something, even when there's an easier way, to develop discipline and skill. For example, choosing to walk instead of taking an elevator is an example of intentional effort. It builds strength and endurance. Or this, writing things down by hand instead of typing them can improve memory because of intentional effort. Another example, cooking a meal instead of ordering food helps develop independence through intentional effort. And one more, reading a book instead of scrolling on your phone strengthens focus with intentional effort. All right, back to what I was saying. When we choose to do things manually once in a while, we keep those skills alive. We remind ourselves that we can cook, we can remember things, we can navigate without GPS. And that sense of capability naturally makes us less reliant on technology, which makes us feel less lazy. Because again, it's not about laziness. It's about how easy everything has become. And if we want to break that cycle, we have to choose effort sometimes. Now, there's one last thing I want to talk about. The social aspect of laziness. This one's big, because the way people perceive laziness is often influenced by how others behave. Let me explain. If most of your friends spend their free time watching TV and scrolling on their phones, guess what? That's going to feel normal to you. And if you try to do something productive, like reading, exercising, or learning something new, you might actually feel out of place. Or even worse, you might start to think, why should I even bother? No one else is doing it. This is something called social influence. Hold on. Social influence. Let's break that down. Social influence is the way our thoughts and behaviors are shaped by the people around us. For example, if your coworkers take long breaks, you might start doing the same because of social influence. Or this, if your friends all exercise regularly, you're more likely to stay active due to social influence. Another example, people who surround themselves with motivated individuals tend to be more productive because of social influence. And one more, if your family values learning, you'll likely develop a love for knowledge through social influence. All right, back to my point. When we spend time around people who avoid challenges, we start to see that as normal. And before we know it, we adopt the same habits. Not because we chose to, but because that's just what we're surrounded by. So one of the most powerful things we can do is intentionally seek out people who challenge and inspire us. People who push themselves. People who are excited to grow. People who make effort feel normal. Because the more we're around that kind of mindset, the more it rubs off on us. And suddenly, what felt like laziness before starts feeling like momentum. Because at the end of the day, technology isn't the enemy. It's a tool, and like any tool, it depends on how we use it. If we let it take over every aspect of our lives, yes, it will make us feel lazy. But if we take back control, if we choose effort sometimes, if we train our focus, if we reset our motivation, then technology doesn't make us lazy. It makes us more powerful than ever. And that's what truly matters. Now, let's look at something really interesting. how technology affects our attention span. Have you noticed how hard it is to focus on one thing for a long time? You start reading a book, and after 5 minutes, you feel the urge to check your phone. You try to watch a movie, but suddenly you're scrolling through social media at the same time. You sit down to work and ding. A notification distracts you instantly. This is happening to all of us, and it's not just a coincidence. It's how technology is designed. Apps, websites, notifications, they all compete for our attention. They give us tiny bursts of dopamine, which is the chemical in our brain that makes us feel good. Every time we get a new message, a like, a comment, or even a random notification, our brain gets a little hit of dopamine. And because it feels good, we keep coming back for more, and more, and more, until suddenly, sitting still and focusing on one thing feels boring. And this is where the problem starts. Because if we lose the ability to focus, we lose the ability to do deep, meaningful work. And if we can't do deep, meaningful work, we start feeling unproductive. And when we feel unproductive, we start calling ourselves lazy. But again, it's not laziness. It's just that our attention span has been hijacked by constant stimulation. Now, let's pause here. Hijacked attention. Let's break that down. Hijacked attention means our focus is constantly interrupted by distractions, making it difficult to concentrate on one thing for a long time. For example, if you check your phone every few minutes while studying, your brain is experiencing hijacked attention. Or this, when you open your laptop to work but end up watching videos instead, that's hijacked attention. Another example, if you struggle to finish a book because you keep checking notifications, your focus is affected by hijacked attention. And one more, if you find yourself switching between 5 different tasks but completing none, that's a result of hijacked attention. All right, back to what I was saying. If we want to take control back, we need to train our focus again. And one of the best ways to do this is something called deep work. Wait, deep work. Let's break that down. Deep work means working with full concentration for long periods, without distractions, to achieve high-quality results. For example, sitting down to write for an hour without checking your phone is an example of deep work. Or this, reading a book without stopping to scroll through social media is a form of deep work. Another example, solving a complex problem without multitasking improves productivity through deep work. And one more, practicing a skill like playing an instrument with total focus is a great example of deep work. All right, back to my point. When we retrain our focus through deep work, we stop feeling restless all the time. We stop feeling like we have to check our phone every 5 minutes. And suddenly, we can sit still. We can concentrate. We can get things done without feeling distracted. And that gives us a sense of accomplishment, which, once again, makes us feel less lazy. Now let's talk about something really important. Our relationship with instant gratification. This one is huge because one of the biggest reasons we feel unmotivated is that we've gotten used to getting things instantly. Think about it. We don't wait for letters, we get instant messages. We don't wait to develop photos, we take them instantly. We don't wait for food to cook, we order it instantly. We don't wait to understand a concept, we Google it instantly. And while this makes the life easier, it also makes us impatient because when we get used to instant results, we start losing patience for things that take time. Things like learning a new skill, building a career, improving our health, mastering anything hard. And when something doesn't give us instant results, we feel frustrated. We give up, and we mistake that frustration for laziness. But again, it's not laziness. It's just that our brain has been rewired to expect instant rewards. Now, let's pause here. Instant gratification. Let's break that down. Instant gratification means wanting quick results without waiting or putting in long-term effort. For example, Choosing to watch TV instead of exercising because one gives instant pleasure is an example of instant gratification. Or this, spending money on unnecessary things for quick happiness instead of saving for the future is driven by instant gratification. Another example, checking social media instead of finishing work happens because of instant gratification. And one more, eating junk food instead of cooking a healthy meal is a classic case of instant gratification. All right, back to what I was saying. When we train ourselves to delay gratification, to wait for results instead of expecting them instantly, we develop patience, we develop discipline, we develop the ability to work hard even when we don't see results right away. And that is the key to overcoming laziness. Because at the end of the day, laziness isn't the problem. It's distraction, it's convenience, it's overstimulation. It's the way technology rewires our brain. And if we want to stop feeling lazy, we don't need to push harder or force motivation. We just need to take back control. Control over our focus, control over our habits, control over the way we use technology. Because the truth is, technology isn't making us lazy. It's just making it easier to be lazy. And the moment we recognize that, we can flip the script. We can use technology to our advantage instead of letting it control us. And when we do that, we don't just stop feeling lazy, we start feeling unstoppable. So, here's the bottom line. Technology itself isn't the enemy. It's how we use it that shapes our habits, our focus, and ultimately, our productivity. The more we train our minds to resist distractions, delay gratification, and engage in deep work, the more control we take back. Instead of letting technology make us lazy, we can use it as a tool to grow, learn, and become more efficient. At the end of the day, the choice is ours. Will we let tech control us, or will we take charge? That's a wrap for today. Technology is powerful, but how we use it determines whether it makes us lazy or more efficient. Be mindful of your habits, take control, and use tech to your advantage. If you enjoyed this episode, stay tuned for more. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.